Bass fishing is gaining in popularity quicker than it has in a long time. So today I want to go over, if you're just getting into the sport, what would be a great beginning setup. If you're new to bass fishing, it can be overwhelming when you look online or go to the tackle store. There seem to be thousands of options when it comes to rods and reels, line, presentations, and then when you get into lures, wow, where do you even begin? For those of you that have been bass fishing for a while, go ahead and drop some comments down below and let our brand new viewers here know what are some of your best tips and techniques for learning this excellent sport of ours. Thank you so much for that. So as far as rods and reels, most likely we're talking about a spinning reel. So this particular reel right here is what we would consider a spinning reel. It is by far easier to use than a bait caster, especially if you're trying to figure out this sport on your own and don't have a mentor to kind of help you out with it. Now, as far as the size of a spinning reel, I'm a big fan of what I like to call the 20 series. Now, each manufacturer has their own numbering system, but usually if it has a 2 in it, like 20, 200, 2000, 2500, something like that, it's going to be this size of spinning reel. A lot of companies will have 4 sizes. They'll have like a 10 size, 20, 30, 40, or like I said, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and your 10 size being the smallest, your 40 size being the biggest, and some saltwater applications even get bigger than that. But for bass fishing, this is a great all-around size, and it will also work for pan fishing, and even if you want to go for some bigger things like some catfish. So it is just an all-around excellent size of a spinning reel. And as far as line goes, I'm probably going to be going with monofilament. It's probably the most forgiving of the 3 most popular types of line, braided and fluorocarbon. It's very price point, it's cost effective, it's not super expensive, and for most spinning reel applications, if you're anywhere in the 8-pound to 12-pound test, you're going to be in pretty good shape. I would probably start off with 10-pound monofilament if I was brand new into bass fishing. As you get more advanced, you will be able to put braid on your reels and then tie a fluorocarbon or a monofilament leader, but start off with this size of reel. And then as far as the rod goes, if I had to pick one single rod that's going to work for a wide variety of applications, I'm going to go ahead and go with a medium heavy power rated rod. Now, there are all kinds of technique specific rods out there. This one's actually a medium, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick a medium heavy. You're going to be able to get away with that power rating for some of your bottom bouncing baits as well as some horizontally presented baits. It's just a great all-around rod. And now here is the loaded question, the $1,000,000 question. So how much do I spend on the rod and the reel? Well, let's say I had a Ben Franklin. I had a $100 bill to drop on my rod and reel. I'm going to put about $30 of that into the reel and about $70 into the rod. Or you could look at it this way, about 70% of whatever your budget is, that's what I would put into the rod. And here's my reasoning on that. If you have a decent rod but a cheaper reel, you're still going to be able to feel the bites, and then the reel is going to suffice. If you flip that around and have a very expensive reel and a cheap rod, yeah, you may have a Cadillac of a reel, but you're not going to feel any bites. And what do I mean by that? Rod sensitivity is based on the least amount of material that a manufacturer can use to build the rod, because it makes it lighter weight and therefore it is more sensitive, and we want to feel what is going on the end of the rod. So put the majority of your budget, whatever that is, into the rod, and then as you grow and get into the sport, you can go ahead and upgrade from there. Matter of fact, I'll drop a video link down below, and it talks about are expensive rods worth the money, and really it comes down to application, but get the best rod that you can get that fits within your budget, and it will serve you well. Okay, we've talked about the rod, we've talked about the reel, and we've talked about the line that I would use. Now let's get some of the basics as far as terminal tackle and lures. Let's start off with the hooks. If I had to keep it very simple for a beginning setup, I would go ahead and grab a couple different sizes of EWG or extra wide gap hooks. Now when you go down the hook aisle at your favorite retailer, you will see there are hundreds and hundreds of choices. But if I had to narrow it down and keep it simple, an EWG hook is going to work for most applications that you're going to want. And as far as the sizes, I would probably start off with a 2/0 hook. This is a 2/0 here, but if you had a 2/0, 3/0, and a 4/0, that's going to cover 90% of what you want to do. So go ahead and pick up a few packs of these hooks and you're going to be in really, really good shape. Now, what about worm weights or bullet weights when it comes to Texas rigging our lures? First thing you're going to want to check are the regulations in the waters that you fish. Can you still use lead worm weights, or are you in a state or a region that demands that you do not use lead and you have to go with tungsten? So that is the first thing to check. Make sure you check your rules and regulations for that one. But as far as what sizes to get, I would probably go ahead and pick a couple packs. I would get your 1/8 ounce, your 3/16, 1/4 ounce, 5/16, and probably a 1/2 ounce worm weight as well. If you have that spread from 1/8 ounce to 1/2 ounce, once again, that's going to cover most of the applications that you want to use where you're going to be Texas rigging some soft plastics. And I will drop a link down below for a video that talks about weight sizes or sinker sizes, and it really goes into depth on that if you would like some more information. All right, let's jump into the lures. So if I had to pick 5 lures for a brand new beginning bass angler, what would they be? And I have selected these on a couple of factors. One is their fishability. How easy are they to fish? In other words, there's not a big learning curve for fishing them. And then the second thing was how effective they are through multiple months of the year. So the first one, as a beginning bass angler, you're going to want to have some sort of a top water lure. And if I had to pick just one that meets those 2 criteria, that is easy to fish and you're going to be able to catch fish on it throughout most of the year, I would probably pick a popper for a brand new bass angler. They're very effective, they work, they're not difficult to fish. As a matter of fact, when I start youth bass fishing, brand new bass anglers, and we're talking about topwaters, I always give them a popper. Some other easy topwaters to use, you could go ahead and get yourself something like a whopper plopper, a buzz bait. Those are 2 good ones for beginning bass anglers. The second one I would recommend for a new bass angler, hands down, has got to be some sort of a stick bait. I've got this one rigged up on a wacky rig here. There's just a ton of stick baits on the market. If you get that 4 to 5 inch size, 5 inch is the very traditional size to use. I've got an O-ring here for wacky rigging this, but I could also just, stick the hook through the center of it and the lure presents like this on the way down. But a stick bait is another one of those lures that just catches fish throughout the year, and it's not super difficult. There's not a huge learning curve for it, so that definitely is number 2. The third one for beginning bass anglers, I would suggest they get some sort of a square bill crankbait. A square bill does a great job of coming through cover, ripping through weeds, bouncing off logs, rocks, that type of stuff, and can be fished very, very shallow. Deep diving crankbaits are a little bit intimidating. One, because they are quite expensive and they really dig down deep into the water column and can be easy to get hung up and break off. And the worst thing that can happen to a brand new bass angler is to get frustrated with keep breaking off their lures, especially when they're expensive. But a square bill crankbait is very effective. Once again, works through a large portion of the year, and they can be fished really shallow, which most bass anglers enjoy fishing to visible cover, to stuff that they can see. The fourth one I would recommend is a swim jig, not your standard flipping and pitching jig, but a swim jig has got a very, very small learning curve as well. You just kind of throw it out and really mimic some sort of bait fish coming through the water column. Flipping jigs and pitching jigs are awesome, especially if you've got somebody to help teach you what a bite feels like, how to fish them. I got plenty of videos on the channel here that covers that. But as far as brand new beginning bass anglers, a swim jig is a really, really good choice, and the bites are easy to pick up. Oftentimes with a swim jig, it's one of those lures that the bass really hit it very, very well. And new bass anglers, that is something they enjoy, is really feeling that bite. So a swim jig is my number 4 choice for a new bass angler. And number 5, I would probably pick up some sort of bladed jig, something like a thunder cricket or your traditional chatterbait style bladed jigs. 1, these are very popular. 2, they do a great job of catching fish, and there's multiple ways that you can fish them. You can cast it and wind it, you can let it sink to the bottom and then go ahead and hop it back to the boat. I mean, there's really several really good presentations to fish a bladed jig, which for a brand new bass angler makes it easy. They can feel confident that they are probably doing the retrieve right or doing something that is going to work. So that is why I pick a bladed jig for my number 5 choice. The nice thing about fishing in general, and bass fishing specifically, is there are so many different lures out there. There's so many different presentations that you can do. And as you grow and gain confidence in the sport, you're going to really start to narrow down what type of an angler you are, what you like to do. If you like to fish shallow, deep, what types of lures do you like to use? We are always learning. This is one of those sports where there is nobody that knows everything about the sport, and you can always get more information and learn more every single day. So enjoy the process. There's going to be frustrating days and then you're going to have great days, but I always tell new anglers this: it doesn't matter if you catch a fish this big or you catch one this big. It's impossible not to have a smile on your face when you bring that bass to the boat. And hey, if you'd like to watch that video on rods and are expensive rods worth it, go ahead and click on this one right here and make sure you go out and encourage someone today. You never know how you might just change their life. For the Bass Fishing Life, I'm your host, Steve Rogers.